can't stand people who compare Panzer to a thing in video games. So internet culture is interesting because I'm going to tell you about a study that was done. So there were like 6 monkeys in a room, and the researchers or whatever, they put a ladder in the room. So the monkeys looked at the ladder, they climbed up the ladder, they played with the ladder, they did stuff with the ladder, they got used to it. And a researcher came in and he put a bowl of grapes on the ladder. And one of the monkeys went up the ladder to eat the grapes because grapes are, fun to eat or whatever. I think we just lose all our shit here. Cool. So, one of the monkeys goes up and eats the grapes. And while that happens, the researchers come out with like a hose and they spray all the other monkeys. So the one monkey's eating grapes and all the rest of them are getting sprayed. And, naturally they're confused. They don't understand why they're getting sprayed with a hose. Well, so eventually the grapes are gone and people play with the ladder or whatever, but when the researcher comes in and puts in more grapes, one of the monkeys goes up and all the other monkeys get sprayed. And monkeys figured it out. Oh, when somebody's eating the grapes, we get sprayed. So really quickly, when the next bowl came out, when a monkey tried to go up to climb the ladder to eat the grapes, the other ones, they pulled him down. They yanked his ass to the ground. Fuck no, you don't eat the grapes. Nobody eats the grapes. You don't eat the grapes here. Okay. And they started to swap out the monkeys. So one by one, they swapped out the monkey, or a monkey from the room, and replaced it with one that was not in the room, that had not seen the grapes, and they would put the grapes out, and the new monkey be like, oh fuck, grapes. And the other monkeys, oh no, they grab him and they pull him down from the ladder. No, you're not supposed to eat the grapes. You can't eat the grapes. Not allowed. Because they didn't want to get sprayed. Well, monkey after monkey after monkey gets replaced until there's literally no monkey in the room has ever seen anybody get sprayed by the hose. No monkey in the room has ever seen somebody eat the grapes. But they all know you don't eat the grapes. So it's a learned behavior. Like, the society makes its own rules as shit goes on. A similar example, as you walk into a society, you see what's occurring, and then you mimic the behaviors. There was another example of, there were people in a waiting room, like a doctor's waiting room. And every, 20 seconds, a buzzer would go off, meh, and then everybody would stand, and then they would sit down. So somebody would come into the waiting room, meh, everybody'd stand up, and then they would sit down. And this would go on for minutes. So the new person would start to stand up because everybody else was standing up, like, what's going on here? And then they would sit. So, the fuck? How is this even possible? What the ever-living shit is this? I shot an Oland a lot, and I was completely, mind out of my mind, eating flak and dying. What is... I don't get it. Okay, so whatever. And they had multiple people come in that had never experienced, why people were standing with the buzzer, and they rotated people out again. People just learned, you go into the room, that's what happens, so that's what you do. Well, when you look at an internet community, when you look at, a gaming community, if there's no one to set the rules, then the rules are what people make them. So if you have a figurehead in the community, and they act in this way, people will mimic the figurehead, because that's how it works. If you have multiple figureheads in the community, people will imitate the figurehead they choose to approve with, or whatever. You can have clans form around a culture, as opposed to, the gaming culture, they'll have their own form of culture. So when you have people online that scream, the N-word, or the, call people, whatever, slurs and shit, they've seen so many other people do that they just literally assume that's life. If you meet somebody in person, in a library, they would probably never say those things. But in a game, you see so many other people doing it that you're simply mimicking the behavior that everybody else does. So it's not about whether it makes sense or it's logical or it's rational. It's just, yeah. One of the most interesting studies that I've seen was done by Riot Games. What they did is people complained about the toxicity in League of Legends because it's a team-based game, just like World of Warships is. So one person doesn't often win the game. Your team wins the game. So you have to depend, like, the fate of your game is in the hands of 4 or however many other people. So, you know, people can get really toxic if they get fucking mad. So what they chose to do was, rather than sit around as the company, the game people, and go, what do we think is acceptable? They farmed it out to the player base, and they created what's called the tribunal. So when people fucked up, when people were assholes and they got reported, you know, through an in-game report feature, when they accrued enough reports, some sample cases of reported games would be sent to the tribunal, and players, without seeing who this player is, you know, player X or whatever, would read what they're saying and how they're interacting with people, and they would vote. This person's okay. No, this person should be punished, you know, whatever. So they literally farmed out this concept to the players of the game itself to say what words are okay. What kind of smack talk, what kind of aggression is okay? What are the things that the community in this game is okay with? And then once they had that data, they realized, well, okay, now that we know what our community expects, how do we police this? So they created an AI learning system that would read in-game chat and, based on reports, be able to associate what is said with how many reports that happens, and it could learn context even in languages that it wasn't programmed in. Because it would just see this happens and this results in a report. It could zero in over many cases and learn basically what words, regardless of language, regardless of alphabet, letters, alphabet, Cyrillic, Asian symbols, whatever. And once it could learn that and it knew how to zone in on it, it could ban people within 20 minutes, within 15 minutes, because it could understand this is what happened. Oh, the severity of that is really high. Gone. And when a person had a very immediate response to bad behavior, they could associate, oh, if I do this, it's bad, it's not acceptable. But like, if you do this shit for days and weeks and months and whatever, and then somebody calls your shit on it, your instinctive response is defensive. I've been doing this for fucking months. What are you telling me I can't do this? Who the hell are you? No, get out of my face. Yeah. Because if you get away with it forever, then that's just how it's going to be. Like, I used to work in a movie theater, and I was trained to work this way. And then a new boss came in, and they wanted it to be different. Well, I had a year's worth of job experience doing X, and they wanted Y. And my initial, human response was, I was trained this way. I'm doing my job. This is okay. And when somebody's telling me it's not okay, it's like, I was trained to do this. So, I mean, there's some mental disconnect there. And it's interesting to see how online communities mimic that.